Welcome to From Tech Developer to Real Estate Developer. Here you'll go from making ends meet behind a keyboard to living in true freedom by using real estate well. Never having to work a full-time job, report to a manager, or give your adult life to a corporation that probably doesn't care about you. We will give you everything you need for your journey: techniques, principles, real-world experience, and application, filtered through 5 key power principles from my book, People Power, Other People's Money, How to Win, Enjoy, and Reserve. Get ready to take notes. Let's jump into From Tech Developer to Real Estate Developer. Welcome to From Tech Developer to Real Estate Developer. Have another awesome guest here today, George Salas. He's a serial entrepreneur, real estate investor, inspirational speaker, fund manager, and elite short-term rental operator. He leads top-tier real estate masterminds and syndications and operates properties nationwide, having executed over 110 real estate transactions across fix and flip properties, wholesaling, owner finance, subject to midterm rentals, and short-term rentals, vacation rentals. His mission is to empower 1 million real estate investors to achieve financial independence through his short-term rental model. He is a husband to an amazing woman, father to an adorable young baby boy, an athlete, avid traveler, and dog lover. I don't think you do enough, George. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that, man. Thanks for having me, Ivan. It's a pleasure to be here and just ready to rock and roll, man.
Cool, man. Do you want to expand, by the way, on that introduction at all? I'm sure I've just touched the surface of that.
Yeah, a little bit. I'll tell. I love telling a little bit of my journey, so if that's okay. Like we'll go through 5 minutes about how we all came here, right? With how we got started. So, I started. My journey started when I was 6. Okay. Was born in Peru, and at 6 years old, my parents were getting a divorce. We moved to a small city on the jungle side of Peru, and we lived in an adobe house for 9 years.
Wow.
Out of that adobe house, half of it collapsed because we were so poor that we had like a leak on the tile, the Spanish tile on top, and then after that, half of the house had collapsed. So we had to move over, and so we had like this one room that was like half living room, half bedroom, and then my brother, myself, my mom slept in another room. So we were really poor, right? So at 15 years old, I had the opportunity to move here to America, and I didn't get to see my father for 9 years. And when he came back into my life, I left again, right? I was 15, right? So just do what my mom said, right? So, and one thing I learned is, that when you have the opportunity to build something and create a life, as being here, and coming from absolutely nothing, it is very crucial that you really appreciate that and then don't take that for granted, right? So that's what I did. And over 10 years, I was in hospitality, and I did that for, different venues. I started a marketing company, and so market these different venues across Houston, Texas. We create events. So we were like a Vegas host for say. We create the entire event, book all the talent, get all the staff, and that sort of thing. And that was really cool. But in 2016, when I had the opportunity to jump into the investing world out of that world, right? I did put over $300,000 into a limited partner position. So it's an investment that I didn't have a lot of say, so I was just a partner, right? And a year and a half later, that one venue that we opened, right, that the general partner opened, ended up getting shut down because the general partner did not do the proper resetting of the lease, right? So this was a triple net lease. So we lost everything.
Oh,
right?
no.
Everything. So it was a $1.3 million build out, and we got locked out. And I'm not going to blame him or anybody else for my failures, right? It was a failure of mine, right? Because when you go into such a large investment, and I was so young and so naive when it came to investing, right? I did not even know anything about anything when it came to the investing world, right? And then putting money into a project like that. I had no place doing that at the time, right? But I did. And I had this driving force driving me to do that. But I also had the nerves and like, I don't know anything about this. I'm just going to trust this person. So I trusted them, didn't do enough due diligence, and then because of that, didn't get to know them better, didn't understand the structure, right? So point being made, lesson for anybody listening out here, when somebody reaches out to you, a business partner, vet them, get to know them, right? Really understand what their goals are, if your values align, and if you're looking at the whole business plan with the same vision, right? So whether you're a limited partner, and your goals are to get passive investments, from your real estate, or your general partner and be active, and if your values and goals align, then you're gonna go farther. But ours didn't. I didn't know what his agenda was. Really, he had a his agenda, right? So that was a huge lesson. But I didn't stay there, Ivan. I got up harder than I fell down, right? So after the loss, this is 2017. Okay, I did not know what I was going to do. I was broke and broken. I had nothing, lost everything. I didn't even have money to buy a water burner. We opened that venue, worse when we closed. So I had to go back and take the old life, right? Meaning I had to go back and go renegotiate with different venues and go back from owner, right, to again, try to figure out this marketing company. And it wasn't like before, right? I had sort of stepped down from there, and, I made a choice. My choice was I went back for 6 months, but I wanted to learn something different that could really create freedom and help me build that legacy that I wanted for my family. And that was real estate, right? So started with flips, fix and flips in 2018, wholesale deals, and then some short-term rentals in 2018. This is when I figured out this short-term rental game, and then it evolved to specifically just more short-term vacation rentals. So by 2020, we had 50 doors, right, in short-term rentals. A lot of them we would lease and sublease, right, and some we owned, but not that many. And then we started shaving off, after I learned, obviously every time there's a 10x jump in your life, if you're listening out there. So like when you have a 10x jump in your life, you're also going to make mistakes, right? So unless you're prepared, and I wasn't, right? So every time I made the jump, I wasn't prepared, until I discovered what was, the learning, the growth, the personal development, the self-improvement part of life, right? So now that's what drives me, is the infrastructure of everything else, right? So fast forward to now, we've built a nice portfolio, solid portfolio of short-term vacation rentals, all luxury homes, right? We've launched a private equity fund, and now we get to hang out with people like you, man, high level, high performers, high achievers with this very similar aspirations and goals, man. So I get to share that story with you, and I appreciate you having me here, brother.
Thanks, bro. I'm glad to have you too. What is it? Iron sharpens iron, right? So
Absolutely, man.
yeah, and I'm glad we're able to share it with whoever is listening and watching too. I'm sure we're about to jump into some gold here. When you were talking, I immediately wanted to ask, because a lot of people at that point could be like, oh, I'm just going to give up on life. I'm going to go work at a restaurant the rest of my life. This is not meant for me. I'm not this guy. So what gave you the drive to get back up even harder?
I love it. I love it. Great question, man. I always like to go deep here, okay? Since I was little, I was so poor, Ivan, right? I would play soccer on the streets, okay? And these are like dirt roads, right? We'd come out, and the walls of the front of our house would be the goals, right? And I always dreamed of building my own business, right? My mom wanted me to be a doctor, but I wanted to have my own business. And I wanted to build something and make an impact and help people, right? And when I had the opportunity to do that, right, I had this drive inside me, right, which is, I would say, that one thing that not everybody has, that they need to discover what drives me, right? For me, it was, at the time, it was legacy. It was building out something on my own that I could pass on to my family, right? Even though I didn't have a wife and kids like I do now, right? It was my purpose. Like I wanted to build something. It was that drive inside me, the fire. That was the one thing. Number two was I wanted to prove everybody else wrong. And that might be the wrong drive, but it's also part of your drive, right? I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to prove because as you grow, right, you might have some obstacles. Some people, everybody has naysayers in life. And around that time, I was surrounded around naysayers, negative people, right? And I wasn't part of that world. I was just in it temporarily. So the other drive was I wanted to prove everybody else wrong, right? So, and then I wanted to win, right? I always wanted to win. I wanted to build a legacy and leave it for my family, right? So those three drives were the waking force that allow me to have that inner breakthrough. Like I'm not gonna be where I'm at. Like I can do this. The
Hmm.
outer breakthrough was a phone call, Ivan. It was a phone call that a friend did, and then he said, "George, get your butt over here to my fix and flip. This house I had. This is 2017, and I'm gonna show you what real estate can do for you." So we went there. 3 hours later, I walked out of there with like, I'm gonna win in real estate, right? So, aka that translates to having a mentor or an inspiration or a coach or somebody that can really push you, right, while you're down. And I was down, right? So those two moments in 2017 allow me to really get myself up and change my mindset in 3 hours, right, while I was there. So that was it, man.
Wow, man, you are starting off strong. Um, so the first thing I want to address is it's fascinating what you've done in a few years, and I think that's a big part of us being in a modern age too, but also the drive part. Um, but it's good to keep that in mind, especially if you have the right motivators, the right people inspiring you. We're naturally tying into the first section, people power, right now, um, and the right education and systems. We could do a lot in a few years, versus like if you were born in 1901, you know, your only option would be like knowing Andrew Carnegie or something for the most part. Um, and I did want to also speak to, we have a common history. My father was Peruvian. He also grew up very impoverished. And it makes me think of when you were speaking of your story of how he would play soccer and they took pride in, by the end of the day, that their feet and their shins were full of blood, basically, from all the grass and stuff, hitting their feet as they played soccer.
Mhm.
And although us as a traditional parent, probably American, would be like, "Well, my baby, you can't, you can't be bleeding all the time." But the skin becomes stronger, the bone becomes stronger from just the rough pavement and the dirt. And there is something to be said about, trial by fire and intentionally putting yourself in moments where your feet are bleeding, in a way of saying it. Do you have anything to add to that?
I love the metaphor, right? When you are bleeding, you have a choice, right? You can continue bleeding and just lay on the ground and say, "Hey, this hurts," and just stay there and then whine and cry, right? That's going to take you nowhere. Your other choice is to get up harder, start jogging a little bit first, right? Or maybe walking and then start jogging. And then once you gain momentum, right? Momentum creates momentum, right? So momentum creates confidence, right? So the choice is, do I have the courage to get up and start walking, right?
Hmm.
Then that creates the commitment. Once you've got the courage, right? Once you've made one step to get up, right? Which is actually commitment and courage comes afterwards. When you have the commitment to say, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to stay where I'm at, that develops internal courage. Like
Yes.
mind says, I can do this, right? But you have to take one step first, and that's getting up from bleeding.
Mhm. Yes.
Very, very key, man.
Yes. That made me think of even another story my father shared with me, which is that he heard some boxers would go up to like the mountains, and the air is very limited, but they would practice up there, and that would kind of force their bodies to be under duress, so that when they come into the actual ring, it's like, oh, this is a breeze because I almost died not being able to breathe and practicing up there.
It's crazy, man.
It's crazy, right? Um, But I'm sure you could relate to all that stuff, soccer and boxing, because you said you're also an avid athlete. How does that tie into your life now?
Well, I used to always want to be a professional soccer player. Okay.
Okay.
And I had the opportunity. I was so good, brother. And I lost the opportunity because I had a choice, right? And when I was already here, I got drafted. No, I didn't get drafted. I got first team all district in high school. So, but I couldn't, I was about to get drafted, but I couldn't because I was 11 days too old to get drafted into a scholarship.
Oh man.
So I had to walk on into a Division 3 team, and I did play soccer, and I did make the team. And I was one of the 3 out of 70 tryouts that didn't have a 22 had a scholarship, 25 made the team. I was one of those 3 that didn't have a scholarship. And I walked into a Division 3 national team that year when we went to nationals, and I made the team. That's commitment, that's courage, right?
Yeah.
That's getting up harder, right? Then when they denied me and said, you're too old, you can't qualify for scholarships. I couldn't play my senior year, bro. Couldn't
Mm.
even. And and then I went from there, but then the dream got crushed again, right? Or the dream got crushed for the first time there. And it was, I couldn't afford to play soccer and go to school without working. And that's what it had to take. Didn't have the ability to do that, right? So I had to stop playing. I didn't find a way for that one, right? And then I continued to work, which led me to the hospitality journey. But everything happens for a reason, right? There's no
Yeah.
regret, right? So there's only learning, right? So yeah, man.
You know what that makes me think of is a few years ago I had a experience where a business was going immensely well, but then there were factors that essentially made it go downhill pretty fast. And I had a great routine. Like I would get up, go work out at least twice a week, early in the morning, like 7 a.m. And I had a routine of reading books and listening to audiobooks all the time. And after that went downhill, I lost that discipline for a while. I was like, oh man, what was the point of all that? It hurt. And I did all this work and had all this discipline. So my question becomes, how do you protect your discipline?
Well, systems, discipline is willpower for me, and nobody has willpower. It's really hard to keep up with willpower, right?
Hmm.
So you create systems for it. I have systems for everything. I have systems for my goals. I have systems for my habits. And that's the systems, aka the apps, the software, the planners that you write on. Those are systems, right? You don't have to try to remember, and then you just go check the system. Oh, you got to do this, right? And that's how I protect my discipline.
Okay.
Now, there's also a component there that go beyond that, right? It has to be engraved in your values and your culture, right? So it has to be engraved in your values and your culture, because if it's not, then you're going to deviate at some point, even with the systems, right? So you have to always be thinking about that one thing, right? Hey, how do I achieve that goal? That's why writing your goals every single day is so important.
Hmm. Indeed. Good stuff. So systems and having a deeper spirit engraved system, like, hey, this is important, and constant daily reminders. I love it.
Yeah, that's your why, right? That's your
Yeah.
why. That's your internal purpose, internal reason why you live, why you're here in this world.
Yeah. That's why also in my office, as I walk through, I have pieces of artwork too. That helps inspire me too. So I could definitely relate to what you're saying. Um, so, okay, people power. Let's get into that more directly now. Tell me about the mentors, coaches, maybe even not even directly, maybe just happenstance coaches and mentors that came into your life that have given you power to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. That journey started as soon as I hit rock bottom in 2017 after losing my venue, right? So when I lost that venue and I was able to get up harder and have those breakthroughs, internals and external breakthroughs, where I was like, I got this. I've got to do this. That's when I started searching for ways, right? But when you don't know anything about mentors and coaches, I had no idea that was out there, right? But what I did know is that I knew that there was books and there was other people that were inspiring. So I read this book, right, by Russell Brunson, right? It was one of his secrets books, right? One of the first one that he created. And that was a book that inspired me. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that was a book that inspired me to be like, I can do this, right? Like real estate can create freedom and it can help me create a life, right? That's worth living, right? So importantly. So I did that, and then I got into the books, I got into the networking. I was always already a people person, right? So when you're a people person, you tend to develop more relationships than when you're more of an introverted person, right? So I went out there and started going to networking events. I started going to conferences, and I learned, okay, there was a conference for like 197, like a seminar for the weekend that would teach you real estate, right? So I did that, and cool, like I started meeting people in the industry, in the Houston real estate industry, right? And then I started making friends with them, and they naturally just became mentors because of the two-way relationship. I would go support them at their venues. I would go help them at their networking events and set the whole thing up. And then years later, they would come to me, right, and say, George, you want to speak? But they already knew that I had 30 Airbnbs, right? You want to come speak on my RIA, right? Or I would get I would get to ask them a question, or if I needed something, I could reach out to them. Why? Because I gave first.
Mm-hmm.
So these mentors I gave to first, and then it just comes back. So everything in life is that way. You always give first. So you give value, right? And then it comes back directly to you. So that's how this whole mentor thing started for me, right? And it was first books out of Audible. Then it was networking events. It was conferences. And I started meeting people. Then there was a relationship. But then when I really got into getting into coaching and mastermind, right? And me purchasing, I've spent over $150,000 just in the last 3 years in coaches and masterminds and conferences, Ivan. And that has 10x the 10x from before, right? Because books can only do so much. But
Yeah.
when you go and surround yourself against people that are 4, 5, 10 times higher than you are in business or in life, right? Then they're going to bring you up with them, right? So I started doing that, and I hired my first coach in 2021, only like 3 years ago, right? And I paid $25,000 to have 1 year for one coach, and I had a coach on branding and marketing. I had a coach on helping me build this marketing business. That was when I was doing the consulting, and I had a coach to help, the real estate thing in 2021, and then I had these different areas of mentors. And then ultimately I want to have a mentor in every single area of my life, right? Right. So, but that's how I got into the whole mentor coaches thing. And now today, I mean, I'm part of a mastermind that's 20 grand a year. And that's a normal thing for me now. Every year there's a budget to take, like be part of these bigger groups where I could create community. And my whole entire fund model business, like my entire fund, was constructed and created from the mentors that I met in this mastermind that I'm in right now. All of it, every single person, every vendor came out of there. Every person that helped me do it, not all my partners, right? I put together a team, an operating team for our fund, for our private equity company. One partner came out of there, the main partner. Then I created two other partners that came out of relationships here from Houston that I had met through those conferences, through those networking events. So everybody that I have in my life today has come from an opportunity that I've had to where I brought value and then value came back, right? Which is that example. So
Okay.
the journey is just starting. Like when you are in the growth journey, Ivan, right? And everybody out there is listening. I mean, if you're not in the growth journey, right? Like maybe open up your eyes a little bit. But if you are, continue to be there, right? When you're in a growth journey, it never ends. It never stops. It's a continued, never-ending journey. And you just never know what's the next level of yourself that you can discover and open up, right? Once you continue to be on that journey, because it's all one little step at a time, right?
Indeed. Okay. That's naturally tying into the next section, other people's money or resources, because you're talking about all these folks coming together. My question around that is, when it comes to resources, the specifically education resources, how did you come into this elite short-term rentals business?
Okay, great question. So 2017 comes in. I'm doing fix and flips, right? I'm all in, working 18 hours a day, Ivan. Okay. I don't know much about systems and building out, an actual automated business. Okay, so I'm working 18 hours a day, doing everything in the business. Didn't know how to hire VAs. Like right now, we have like 9 VAs, right, in our business. And back then I had no idea, right? So it's like, oh, I can't hire an assistant, they're too expensive here, right? I was doing everything. Then I was doing wholesaling. Then I was doing short-term rentals. Then I started getting people in my network to help me out, right? And then at first, in towards the end of 2018, we launched our first 10 short-term rentals, and these were just leases, right? So there were 10 leases that we went and then just leased them from a landlord, a multifamily landlord like yourself, right? And when that happened, um, I I ran it with these smaller units up until 2020, the end of 2020, right? But what I discovered was when I had 50 doors towards the end of 2020, I discovered that um, during the pandemic, my houses were actually way more profitable, like 50, 60% more profitable in a way of ratios, right? Percentage than my smaller apartments. Now, my smaller apartments were doing great, right? Until the pandemic hit. And then when the pandemic hit, I started doing research, sales were down, bookings were down. I mean, everybody knows about that, right? We were down. We lost money in April, right? We were supposed to hit 70,000 that month, and we only came in like at 37 of March of that year. Then April, we only came in at 22. So you imagine our fixed costs are about 45,000. We're losing $25,000 2 months. And the next month we broke even. But that's when I realized I was like looking into all of the properties profitability, right? And I realized that my smaller units were just terrible profit. Like they were, some of them were losing money, some of them were breaking even, and some were making almost absolutely nothing. So I was already almost at 2 years on those leases, and I made the change. I said, I'm no more, right? So I got rid of all the smaller units. I kept the nicer homes. At that time, they were just a regular home, and we would just put furniture in it, right? And then what we started doing the year following that, we started trying out enhancing and adding more amenities, right? We started trying out houses with built-in amenities, right? And then after that, we started trying out houses with higher end furnishings, right? So we started enhancing and stepping up, the way that we launch these properties. Today, every single house has a unique selling proposition. Every single house has its own theme, right? Meaning it could be a luxury pool house, right? Or it could be a Wonderland house. Like we're about to launch a Wonderland house. Why did I do Wonderland house in Houston? Well, there's a comparable. I'm all about the research, right? The comparable about 2 minutes down the road is a blossom flower theme, right? And these guys they're making 150K a year in this one particular house. So what do? We model, right? We model what's working. We see what are the amenities, what are the things that people love in that place that we can provide in our properties, right? That when we enter a market, we go and we analyze it, right? So that's one way to do it. So we've stepped out of the normal properties, basic houses, into creating this higher end product, that people are going to feel stupid to say no to because it's so system. We've packaged it so well, right? That's starting with the amenities, the colors, right? The theme behind it, all the walls have a different, there's an accent wall in every room, and like we're creating right now, we're launching a property with the pickleball court in Cypress, Texas, right? Big pickleball court, redone pool, outdoor kitchen, and the interior is going to have its own game bar. One room has like 4 TVs. So now you have that's the theme, right? Come hang out here with the large group for sports. And then there's it's a triplex, right? So it's like a main house with a pool. And in the back, unit. It's a 2-1 grandmother suite, right? And then a mother-in-law suite, and then there's a 1-1. So like we're creating this environment in every single property that feels like luxury, but we're only buying median priced properties, right? So we're not buying luxury properties. So we're not buying luxury real estate, right? Which comes to our strategy, and that's our top line revenue strategy, right? Our downside protection when it comes to the acquisition side or the interest rate, or we can get a little deeper if you like. The downside protection side comes with us buying in creative finance terms, right? So the financing set already in place. We buy it subject to the mortgage. So we buy properties for 3, 4, 5%. They're worth $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, right? And now instead of paying $20,000 in interest for that year, for each year, we're paying $10,000 for interest, right? So now we're creating what we call the spread, right? Real estate is about spreads. So the bigger the spread, the bigger the rewards, right? So for top line, we enhance our properties as best as you can, go higher end. For bottom line, we go creative finance, right? So we go markets that are recession resistant, which is another strategy that we implement, right? In our fund, we launch in markets that are recession resistant, but we're not just calling them recession resistant. They're actually data-driven markets that are recession resistant, right? And they are recession resistant because we have historical data that drives those points. Historical data from the 2008 to 2012 economic downturn, right? In the real estate sector and in the hospitality sector. So we go into these markets and open them up, and we have lists of markets. Like we have a list of 150 markets that actually grew in a relative change, in a relative sense, on average of 5% between 2008 and 2012, instead of being negative or having exponential growth. We want relative growth markets, slow growth.
Okay.
Right. So we take a list of all these slow growth markets in real estate, and we take another list of these slow growth markets in vacation rentals / hospitality. Then we merge them together, and then the ones that cross over, those are the markets that we invest in.
Okay. I know you're enjoying that content, but I just wanted to personally invite you to the Commonwealth Affordable Housing Fund. If you want to passively earn while also building communities, doing philanthropy even, while getting quarterly distributions and even sharing in the exit about 5 years down the line, then please join us. This used to just be for friends and family, but you could join in now. You could be essentially earning through an expert, which is I, running the investment firm Commonwealth. So if you want to be a part of it, and also get access to exclusive events where we go to in-progress construction and I show you how your money is being used actively, and how the renovation was just complete, and how this is going to help change people's lives, how we negotiated an acquisition. So you could be a part of those events throughout the year and also earn passively. So if you want to be a part of that, please click the link below, and I'll let you back to your awesome content. Thanks. What resources do you use to study those statistics?
We for the real estate, we use the home price index. Okay, so and then for the vacation rental hospitality, for the vacation rental data, we use AirDNA and Tableau, alltherooms.com, and then for the hospitality, we use the hospitality GDP.
Okay, and you said the first one for real estate was HUD price, HUD?
Home price index, the home price index.
Oh, home price index. Okay, home price index. Okay. A couple questions. I try to think of what would be most concerning, especially for a beginner. A concerning question would be like, how do you mitigate like those toxic party people?
For somebody that's starting short-term rentals, yeah, absolutely. So we have a screening process, right? So we ask a series of questions, right? Then we have also toggles inside our platform that allow us to filter, the guests that have good reviews and that haven't had any negative reviews and maybe have had their full name, they've had their ID, they have historical data, right? Now there we also have an actual a tool that we use. I'm not sure exactly what the name of it is, but my team uses a tool to screen. There's a couple, I'm not sure which one they use, right? They use to screen and they run the backgrounds of these guests. Now Airbnb now provides a more safe because they are doing their own due diligence, right? So if you set it up the right way in the front end, then less party people will come in on the back end. That's one way. The other way is, right, we create luxury properties so these party people, they can't afford, right? These small, the people that don't respect or live in those properties, they're the ones that really they're renting for $100 a night or less, right? But somebody comes in, pays $1,000 a night, right? They're more than likely not going to destroy your house. Now it could happen. I'm not saying it's never going to happen, right? But more than likely they're not,
Okay.
right? How we protect ourselves, that's the front end on both sides. And in the back end, we use different insurance companies and different levels of insurance. Airbnb being one of them. They have a $3 million damage protection now. Somebody damages your house, it's fairly easy nowadays to make a claim.
Oh, okay.
Be a week or two, you get everything plus some refunded, reimbursed to you.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, if somebody's paying 1,000 a night, they're probably going to care about the reputation more than 100 a night. 100 a night, you could just ask your cousin to make a new account and go reserve something.
There you go.
And then they gotta still wait a year to have a reputation to get past your filters, like you said. They gotta have good reviews and stuff. Okay, that's good ways to mitigate that. Tell me about your down payments for the different types of properties.
Absolutely. So we acquire properties, Ivan, in three different ways. Okay. Excuse me. Sorry.
You're good.
One way is subject to creative finance, right? So subject to creative finance means that we're buying a property subject to the mortgage. The seller keeps the mortgage in their name and we take the deed over. And then for that, we put down anywhere between 7 to 12% as entry fees. Most of that 7 to 12% goes to cash the seller, maybe arrears for the mortgages that hadn't been paid, or there's an agent involved and maybe there's a wholesaler involved sometimes, right? So creative finance is our number one strategy because we're mitigating a lot of risk through that strategy. Low interest rate, low debt payments, houses are ready to go for the most part, built-in equity, right? And then we can enhance them to our strategy. Now we also buy properties that are value add, and then we also buy properties that are rent ready. So our rent ready strategy will require a 25% down payment. So we're not doing as many of those, especially because the interest rates are so high in today's world, right? So which these properties have to check out all the boxes, right? So every single box for us to be able to buy them. And some do, right? We recently bought a gorgeous property in South Houston, beautiful backyard. It's got like a outdoor bathroom. It's got a seat out there, a pool, palapas over the pool, right? Like they checked all the boxes, and we're even building a pickleball court on the back, right? So that's one.
Okay.
That's two, right? The third way is value add, right? So we'll take a bridge loan, private money, right? And we have a lot of connections for private money, right? And then we'll turn around and essentially fix it up and refinance it, right? Now that's the JV, co-GP style of joint venture that we do. Or when my wife and I buy property, right? Personally, we own like over a dozen properties just ourselves, right? When it comes to the fund will purchase them cash and then we'll refinance. There's no private lender in the fund, right?
Okay.
So use a private lender only for joint ventures, right? Single asset deals, our own deals, but the fund buys properties straight, right?
Okay.
So three different strategies, 70 to 80% of all of our efforts, go towards creative finance because it's just the best way to do it, right? Even if it's, owner finance or sub two or a combination of both, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Man, that was generous. Because what you just covered, if somebody actually spends the time to execute them, researches it and executes, that's like easily at a minimum $10,000, what you just shared of education. Uh,
Amen.
yeah, so thanks for being so generous with that, man.
Absolutely, brother.
I also wanted to elaborate, going back to another point of protecting discipline, because you mentioned they got to check their boxes. A
Yeah.
lot of people I see lose in real estate because of lack of emotional boundaries. So like, I'm in love with this house. It's gonna do X, Y, and Z, but they don't check all the boxes. Like it has to be the right purchase price to offset risk, protect your exit strategies. You know, don't just go for the emotion. Check all the boxes like he does too to make sure it's the right investment.
Right. And to do that, you have to have an actual buy box, right? So we create our buy box and we literally are checking all the boxes. Like you just press a button to check it, right? That's how accurate we want to be when we're purchasing these properties, right?
Yeah.
So they have to fit in a certain criteria. And the fund has a way more strict criteria than us. Personally, like I would buy sub twos and they could be in different areas. I know that might be that area, might not be a great fit for this other business model, which is fun, right?
Mhm.
And whatever reason that is, like maybe there's too many deals in this area for the fund and there's not enough in that one, right? So as a business, you have to identify where you need to diversify, right? Where to make the moves. And so if there's an opportunity for us, my wife and I, to be able to grab a deal out there, that one has different boxes, right? So you create the buy boxes for the business model that you're wanting to really achieve, right? Like with the goal in mind.
Indeed. For
Uh-huh.
example, my buy box would be for a duplex. I would never buy over 100,000 or 125,000, and it has to make like 2 grand a month minimum, like a 2% rule type investment. What's an example of a buy box you would advise like a beginner?
So a beginner should probably go, I mean, I'm not saying that you need to do that, but a beginner could go for something that is maybe about $250,000 in a Texas environment. Let's just say that I'm just making an example for a beginner that lived in maybe Dallas or Houston or San Antonio, right?
Mhm.
So maybe different in a plan over there. I'm not so familiar with the price, but 250, 300,000, maybe a 3-2 or 4-2, not too big, but not too small, right? You might want to go maybe 4-2.5, right? Small pool, nice backyard, newer property, right? 1990 or after build, with a hot tub already built in, right? And then also in an area close to you, right? With a financing already set in place, so try to buy it subject to so that you can protect your downside since you're just getting started. Way less risky to do something like that than if you were to buy this property in rehab. I would never advise a beginner to go buy a property and rehab because it takes a lot more money down and you've got different costs because you got two different loans, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, something like that, right? And then when it comes to, I would say the closer to home, the better when you're just getting started. So that way you can run that and operate that business, right? And then you can go there and learn as you go, right? And then get with the professional to go do the design and staging for that. Maybe get a mentor or coach to help you do the underwriting for that property, right? So that way you can have the numbers dialed in. I just wouldn't advise it to do it without any training.
Yeah.
Or at least a mentor or coach. I mean, I've made some, first when I got started real estate, I made several mistakes in my fix and flips, right? Because I didn't do the budgeting correctly, especially for the flood homes that I was doing, right? I lost money on two homes. So if you
Oh,
haven't lost money in real estate, you're doing something wrong, right?
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not doing enough deals.
Yeah. Something along the way is going to go wrong. Um, just last year, now that we're in winter. I did it. One of my tenants didn't follow the drip faucet rule, and I got a call about, hey, the pipe just burst. So something is going to go wrong with your investment. You didn't anticipate. Um, okay, so let's move on to winning. I think of winning in a different way to most people. Learning from failure is kind of the way I think of winning. So I guess let's think about your kind of the beginning of your investment career. What was your biggest teachings from that moment where you lost that 300 grand in that LP position?
My number one lesson is never put all your eggs in one basket,
Mm,
right? Number two is learn that business and hire the right people,
mhm.
right? Number three is vet the partners and operators that you're working with very well, right? Get to know them, right? So, yeah, those are probably the three biggest lessons.
That's awesome. I love it. And I want to pause and take note of, did you notice his mannerism? He looked at it very objectively. He didn't say, I blame this and that and this and that, and I'm so angry about this. No, he looked at it objectively. And he even looked at earlier in the episode how he could have done this things differently too. He looked at it from a business level. And that's when you're an investor, that's how you got to look at things too. Like it's almost mathematical the way you got to look at this stuff, not how soon could I blame somebody? Like a lot of people do, unfortunately. Uh, okay, so
Every decision that you make is ultimately wherever you are in life. It's because of every decision that you've made.
yeah,
So, and it's all you, right? There's no one else to blame. You made the decisions.
yeah. And the way you could apply that to the other aspects of your life too only makes you a better investor, like your personal relationships. Like, what could I have done better in this circumstance with my wife, my spouse? That only makes you enhances you as a person too, is it? And your business side too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, okay, that was a perfect, succinct answer for winning. What about enjoying the next section? How do you enjoy what you've built, brother?
We have three buckets that we put our funds in. Okay. The bucket for enjoying is called the dream bucket. Okay, so part of our income goes towards the things that we love, right? So one is our risk bucket, right? One is our safe bucket, right? And one is our dream bucket. That's extra money, right? So our dream bucket allows us to be able to really enjoy what we've worked for so hard, right? So I recently used this example of the book Money Master the Game from Tony Robbins, and I'm using the Money app to that allow me to create these buckets, right? So use the Money app. If you haven't done it, I strongly recommend everybody out there to read the book. First of all, huge book on a high level view about investing, about how you should think about money, right? And then investing it in different areas as well. But also that app is bomb, right? Because it helps you create a systematized, right, 5 levels of financial freedom, right? So financial dreams. So I use that, and I realized that by segmenting your buckets, like your financial dreams, I look at it and I was like, we're farther than we thought, right? And there's 5 levels, right? We're at level 3 to 4 ourselves, right? My wife and I. So, and in the next year to two, we want to hit that level 5, right? So, and in order to do that, that's like 10,000 hours behind, right? You've got to put your time, put your hours, persevere every single day, right? And for us, it's about being, taking that time and being as a family together, right? My wife and I love to travel, right? So we use our excess funds to plan vacations. So, and our vacations constitute of, if we go to a conference, we go to a conference, and then after that we take an additional 2-3 days, right? Or we plan like a full on vacation. Like last year we went to Peru for a month to see my father, right? The year before we went to Hawaii for 10 days, right? So you sort of plan your destiny by really, I mean, not just working your butt off really, really hard, but also by putting it on paper, right? And start putting your money in different buckets. So a percentage of of your excess funds every month should go into a separate account so that you could do whatever you want with it, right? So I was watching this YouTube video. Again, I'm an avid learner, so I'm always learning everything on the topics that I'm working on. Like this first quarter, I'm mastering personal finance and health and my marriage. There's three. Well, this year is three, right? So I was watching a video from Ramit Sethi on the I think it was like he has a book. It's called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich," but it's more like money management, right? And he broke it down into different cool buckets. I'm like, it's a cool way to look at it, right? So
Mhm.
Ramit Sethi, great book if you're getting started to learn about personal finance, right? I haven't read his book, but I just ran into his video and he broke down his playbook. And then part of that was take a little bit of your money, of that extra money, and automatically send it to an account. Name that account, like trip to Peru, right? Name that account and then just work on your goals every month and then send it automatic because it doesn't hurt us back, right?
Mhm.
Make it automatic. That was really cool for me. I was like, oh, yeah, I like that, how he names his accounts, right? So now you're envisioning every time you check your bank account is trip to Peru, right? That
Mhm.
was really cool, man, I thought. So we love to enjoy, man. Love
That's
to.
awesome, bro. You know what that makes me think of too is that one of the top reasons for divorce is actually financial issues. And so not having those conversations actually, is a detriment if you're married. And I don't know about you, but years ago, I thought of it as a weakness when I had that, one particular business have a hard time. I was like, I thought of it as a weakness that I don't want to tell my wife like this is gonna be a struggle. I'm gonna handle it. I'm gonna take care of it. And I took it all upon myself instead of communicating it. Eventually it got to a point of communication had to be happening because we had to make lifestyle changes. And it actually that vulnerability brought us closer together as opposed to what I thought, oh, I'd be weak as a man. I'm gonna be having my balls taken away from me.
Oh my goodness. Right.
Right?
Literally get deep into this conversation, right? That would probably be another episode, right? But
Yeah.
yes, 100%, man. You are
Hmm.
absolutely right about that.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that vulnerability, if you're maybe dating somebody and you're vulnerable with them about what you're going through and they try to hammer you down, that is probably not spouse material. They should be figuring out, oh, how can we work together to, mitigate this? So just keep those sorts of things in mind. It doesn't define you as a man or woman if you're going through something. It's just we all go through something. It's how we deal with it, how we stand up from it, like my brother George here did. So speaking of that, draws us naturally into reserve. So there's lots of different reserves. There's financial, spiritual, emotional, physical. Tell us about a reserve, a more recent reserve you worked on that is important to you and what you do to work on it.
So right now, my physical reserve has been one of my number one priorities. Okay. Um, Taking ourselves back, like flashback to 2020, when the pandemic hit, I put my life into a full focus on saving the business, right? So again, I was going back to working 18 hours a day. This was for about 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And I wasn't taking care of my health because I was eating very unhealthy, right? I was staying in the office without drinking enough water, no working out, no exercise, right? So walking to the taco truck next door and eating tacos almost every day from my office at 9 p.m., right? So walk over. And fast forward like about a year after that, right? So middle of 2021, I was struggling with sleep. I was struggling, with focus and concentration. And then I'm like, what is wrong? So I started studying again. When I go and I want to learn something, I go really deep. Instead of going shallow, learning a lot of topics on one, I go deep, mastering one thing. So I was mastering sleep. And I realized that a lot of my struggles were coming from the food I was eating.
Mm.
So since then, my focus has pivoted into learning about all these areas of internal health and then functional medicine about, how do I cure my body from that disease, right? It wasn't a disease really, but in general, it's the malfunction of your body and not being able to sleep, right? It's almost a disease, right? How do I do that? I went deep, and that was my focus. So my full focus has been on really enhancing and getting back into the best health of my life. This year, my theme is to be in the best shape of my life, right? And in 10xing my marriage, right? So whenever you said, hey, vulnerability in marriage, wife, and I was like, man, we can go into another, right? Why? Because you've got to go deep, right? So those two topics for me are, I'm going deep in them right now, right? So my reserve is the focus, right? Is the marriage right now, 10xing it to the next 10x levels ever. And then my health, right? Going back to, I mean, when I was 27, 28, I was in great shape, and I was able to do a lot more things that I can now, right? Like long distance jogging and play soccer for hours, right? But I look at myself now, I'm like, wow, I can't do that anymore. So I played soccer recently, it hurt, right? So again, getting the best shape of your life, total reserve for me. Okay. Sorry.
Indeed, man. Wow, that makes me think of a conversation I had with a football player the other day, and he was saying how working out, even if he stops being a football player, is going to be a key aspect of his life because he just doesn't feel like his body is the same. Like it's really a spiritual thing for him. And I connected the dot to when I ran the other day, about a mile and a half. Like my brain just started to spout out ideas, like videos you got to make, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I got to keep doing this more often, more regularly, and that's one of my goals too, is top peak performance, physical, this year also, because man, it just clears up everything, gets you connected to your spirit so quickly, and that's why the Bible says that your body is your temple, and if you're treating your temple like garbage, you're gonna get garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, exactly. So great points, brother. So how could people collaborate with you? What sort of stuff are you working on?
Well, before I even say that, I'd like to wrap it up, right? We've had a great conversation, man. So, and I want to point something out to the audience. One of the biggest things that most people don't understand is that if you don't work in every area of life and you are not working on mastering one at a time, not all of them at a time, right? But being a successful real estate investor, right? You've got to start somewhere. But as you grow, you really got to master every area of your life because they all are interconnected.
Yeah.
To be a successful real estate investor, I mean, you brought some great points and you asked some great questions. And I just wanted to say, like as we go and then everybody goes out there with their journey, right? After listening to this episode, I want you to know that success is about every area of your life, right? It's about really loving every single area, being happy in every area of your life. So this conversation at the end of the day is for everybody out there to grow, but the focus is on every area of your life one at a time. Okay. So that's it for the wrap up right now. As far as the things I'm working on, is this year our focus is our private equity fund and deals, right? Lots of deals. So we're looking for a strategic partner, right? Anybody that is a sophisticated investor or a passive investor, right? It wants to connect with us. We'll be happy to share. We're focused on the short-term rental investing side, but strategic partners especially, right? Because it's not about the house, it's about the who, right? So us connecting with strategic partners like yourself allows us to expand our network and be able to bring value to different audiences that don't typically know about us.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you doing that, man. And if anybody wants to connect, our website is, personal social media website is George Salas 360.com, and our business website is empresscapitalgroup.com. So thanks for having me, Ivan.
Yeah, man. Glad to do it. What's your minimum investment amount, by the way?
For the fund, it's we have a 506c, so accredited investors are only 50,000 minimum. For strategic partnerships, I mean, it just depends. It's a deal by deal cases, but we do
Okay.
we partner with operators, co-GPs, so we're looking for strategic co-GPs, right? And obviously investors as well. All right.
Okay. And could you provide a quick summary on your return targets?
Yeah, absolutely. So fund return targets is 9 to 11% cash on cash, right? 16% IRR, 5-year life of the fund with the 1 to 2 year extension. We're raising $10 million. It's for accredited investors only.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to joint ventures, it varies. The IRRs vary a little bit higher. Single deals, and then sometimes there's sub twos involved a lot of the time, right? So similar cash on cash returns, more like in the 11 to 12s.
Okay.
So yeah, man.
Excellent. Wow. Man, that was a great episode. One of my tops again. Probably top 3. Man, that was beautiful, bro. Like you said, a great conversation. We really went deep, but also the high level too. Man, we're gonna have to have you back on again. This was beautiful.
Love it, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, George. And for you watching or listening, thanks for watching another episode of From Tech Developer to Real Estate Developer. Catch you in the next one. Thank you for joining us on another episode of From Tech Developer to Real Estate Developer. I hope you got a lot of return on investment for your time today, and I encourage you to share it with other people so that they could also get returns with this valuable education to invest in real estate. We're also sharing this free education because we want to help people learn how to invest so that they could also create more affordable housing units. We have a great goal of creating 2.5 million affordable housing units by 2047, and free education like this is a big part of that. So by you sharing, you are a part of the equation to create those affordable housing units. So I can't wait to see the end of the road that we're going to achieve together. Have an amazing and blessed day.